Good afternoon. It's David Celine and Chris Scully from Drive. And today we want to talk about, is your shop a dream to run or is it a nightmare that you can't escape? And when we talk about this, Chris, I know we talked a few minutes ago, but if you think about it, shop owners have a vision when they start running their shop. They want to make lots of money, going to have an armored car take them to the bank every day to deposit their cash. They're going to have no problem employees because they've seen all the bad employees out there and they're going to only hire the good ones. They're only going to have the greatest customers that drop their keys off and pay for everything on time. And then what happens is you open shop, you get stuck in the day-to-day operations, and then it just becomes a endless cycle that you're in. You're just trying to get the next job out to get the next customer in, and you find yourself not living your full dream that you wanted to live. And a big part of that comes down to the leadership systems, policies, and procedures that you put into your shop. So I wanted to take this time today to address some of those key points that could be missing in your shop that keeps it from being a dream.
Yeah, you brought up a number of points there in that short little intro. And I think that there's often I'm going to start with the employees side of things, because there's often a error that gets made in looking at situations with employees that you don't realize you're making, which is that many times the problem is not the employee, it's the owner, it's the leadership or lack thereof. If you hire somebody and they're qualified to do the job, they have the skills necessary, then the only reason that they wouldn't succeed would be if you're not giving them the tools they need to succeed. And that comes to what you were talking about a minute ago, which is things like your procedures and your policies, and having a culture that actually fosters success.
Well, Chris, you can have a very good culture in your shop. You can have some policies and procedures in place, and you can find having a hard time retaining employees, or still find yourself wrapped up into the business where you have to be there, what we call the mom and dad syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things that I've seen, and I even struggled with this myself with my shops years ago, but I got over it quickly, but that was empowering your employees.
Right.
And one of the biggest things I see is that you put all the policies and procedures in front of your employees, but you're standing over them or taking those responsibilities and you won't let them go. And one of the biggest fears of letting go of those responsibilities is, what am I going to do next? Well, that door is wide open, what you're going to do next, but let your employees do their job to its fullest capability.
Yeah, that's so important. The what am I going to do next question is often the thing that causes a shop owner to put the brakes on empowering their employees, because it's a fear of not having anything to do, fear of missing out on what's going on in their business, whatever. But it's important for business owners to understand that to have a business that really runs like a dream, like, you don't have to worry about your business. You have to make some decisions personally. One of them is, what would I want to do if the business is running well on its own? And if you have something like that, and I'll give you some examples of things that shop owners that I've worked with have decided they wanted to do once they got their shop into that position. One wanted to travel. Another wanted to be able to spend more time working and volunteering with his church. There was another one who wanted to simply be able to work on projects that he liked to work on. And there are probably an infinite number of other examples that could be given along this line. But it's really important that you have an idea what you want to do once your shop is really dialed in. Because if you don't, and you're afraid that you'll end up bored or whatever, then you won't fully empower your employees either, because as long as you don't, then you always have something to do at your shop.
Well, and that's a big thing, always wanting something to do. But, being an owner of a business, there's a lot more to do in the day-to-day operations in there. There's marketing, there's planning, there's looking into the future. What services do you have to do? There's a lot of work into just that. But also, when we're talking down this line, though, is Chris, I've heard it so much and I've seen it with myself in a little bit. I'll even tell myself, I was the
Mhm.
best technician out there. Nobody could do it better than me. So I had to be so hands-on with it and over the top of my employees to the point I was micromanaging them.
Yeah.
And then I graduated from the working on the vehicles and finally, okay, these guys can handle it without me there. When I realized that and went up to the front office, I start selling work. Well, nobody can sell work better than me. And the thing that I had to learn, that I had to get over with on myself, and it's a point where you have to look in with inside yourself and look at it and say, you may be very good at what you do, but you know what? That's why you hire employees, because you want to hire employees that do it better than you.
Right.
That's what makes your business grow and expand. You're always looking for somebody that can do it better than you. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that it puts the business into a whole new condition when that happens.
Yeah, and I've worked with a number of business owners, even outside of this industry, where that was a concern. They were experts at what they did, and they didn't think that they could find people to do it as well as they did, or that could do it the way they did it, whatever the concern was. And usually, that's just um, an idea that you have to get over. Um, what's really great is that it's fairly easy to find good employees who want to learn, who want to do better. And if you get those types of employees, what you'll find is that it's also easy to train them to do things the way you want them to be done.
Well, it's not only that, Chris. When we talk about when I first opened up is empowering your employees, that's why you expand your business. That's how you grow your business. But when you look at it over there, yes, you should encourage your employees to do it better than you do.
Absolutely.
That's their full-time job. The
Hmm.
next piece is training them. I know you brought that up, but give them all the training to be better than you are at that job. When that
Right.
starts happening, your team comes together, your business expands, and you know what? A lot of the worries you have with your business are go away because the stress is not there anymore because you have more than just yourself. And I get it.
Absolutely.
Look, I do get it. This is your baby. You started this from scratch. You've had the blood, the sweat, the tears in it, the good times, the bad times. And it's hard to let go of some of those positions and let an employee take it over. But once you do put the trust in your employees and allow them to do it, the business starts to thrive.
Absolutely. And you brought up the dad syndrome a little bit, and I always find that term incredibly appropriate, because if you look at your business and your employees the way you would look at raising your children, you got to ask yourself, you know, do you want your kids uh, living with you, uh, hanging out into their middle age because you want to be in control of their lives? Most parents don't want that,
No,
right?
as long as they're still
They're
doing the yard work for us, I'm okay though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to, have a live-in gardener, live-in handyman, live-in maid, that kind of thing, maybe you could work something out that way. But, typically as a parent, you eventually want your children to be able to stand on their own and live their own life, right? And you need to have that same desire for your employees in order to create that dream shop that you want. It doesn't go the other way around. You've got to want your employees to take over,
Well,
and
and it's
it
a
has to be a deliberate intention.
Yes, and it goes back to empowering your employees, because if you are in that dad syndrome or mom syndrome case in your shop, a lot of the times is created by you yourself because you keep
Yes.
stepping in and doing it. And
Yeah.
look, if I was an employee working for your shop as one of your top techs getting top dollar, and every time I ran into a small problem, you pushed me off to the side and here, let me show you how to do it.
Hmm.
I would step back and get a cup of coffee and earn that money every time you did it. And see, we create this problem for our employees. So
Absolutely
the
true.
so start thinking. I'll give you one tip to help break that dad and mom syndrome in your shop. And it's very simple. Every time an employee comes from you, ask you how to do something, or they need your help or anything, give them another task to do. Tell them I'll be with you in a minute, but while you're waiting for me, take out the trash, clean the bathroom, handle this for me. And it starts empowering your employees to say, every time I go there, I have to actually take the trash out or clean the bathroom. So maybe I'll try to figure this out on my own first. And when they become less reliant on you, it's easier to give up that role.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Another technique that I've had success with in many cases along this line is simply, what should I do? And sometimes they ask what they should do, not because they don't know, they don't want to be the one calling the shot because they're concerned that if they're wrong, they'll get in trouble. And a good remedy for that is to simply ask them, well, what do you think you should do?
Yeah,
And tell
not
them to
only
go
asking
try it. No
them,
matter if their answer is right or wrong, tell them to go try it.
well, the piece of it, this comes back to policies and procedures. If you
Hmm.
have the right policies and procedures, they should know what to do and how to handle it. But even if they
Exactly.
run across a situation that they don't, is get them to make a decision. Yes, you want to make
Hmm.
sure that you control, you have pieces in place where if they make a decision, it's the wrong one, it doesn't cost the business company or the company money, but let them make those decisions. And then when they make a wrong one, you go in and correct them, but not as far as a punishment side. Say,
No.
look, I would have rather handled it this way. So next time this comes up, let's handle it this way, or let's change our thought process and go to this other way of handling it.
Yeah.
And once you kind of work that, it's kind of, I've told many shop owners and heard many shop owners say this, is you ask them to put themselves in your shoes. How would the boss handle this? Let me
Yeah.
handle it the way the boss would handle it. When you start thinking like that and your employees think it like that, all of a sudden they start doing the things that you want them to do to begin with
Yeah,
and making
absolutely.
the decisions you want them to make.
Right. And the funny thing about that is even the cost aspect of it, as long as you're there almost should be a certain amount of cost involved in them making the wrong decision that you're okay with, because it's likely to happen. And if it does, and they know that the consequences for making the wrong decision is you're going to have a conversation about how it could have been done better, then they're going to feel less concerned about making decisions. And that's really the important lesson, because I'll wager in terms of actual dollars, it's more expensive to take over for them, do it yourself so they don't make mistakes or whatever, than it is to let them make a mistake that costs you maybe a little bit of money, but that they can learn from.
Well, even at that, Chris, we started talking about at the beginning, are you living this nightmare you can't get out? Did you buy yourself a job that you can't quit?
Right.
And what happens in this is why people get stuck in this rut is that they're not allowing their employees to make decisions, or they're
Right.
not training their employees to do things right. Or there's one other thing, you don't simply have the policies and procedures or the guidance that they need to do it the way you do. So these are all big topics that everybody should be looking at their shop. Do I have policies and procedures to prevent this? And when we're talking about somebody making the wrong decision, what is the policies and procedures that you have in your shop that guided them to make that decision?
Right.
Maybe they need to be reviewed. Maybe they're lacking completely and you need to put one in.
Right.
But this is stuff that owners can spend a lot of time on. And if you think about it, if you had to write one policy a week to better your shop, at the end of the year, you got 52 policies.
Exactly.
But it goes a lot more than just writing the policy. You got to implement it. You got to get your crew to agree with it, and then you got to get them to follow it. that's a full-time job just in itself. And
Absolutely.
you're worried about turning jobs over to your employees because you don't know what you're going to do. Imagine how many policies and procedures you can put in place in your business.
Right. And there's one other point along that line, which is it's not just you hand it out and you get them to implement it and you get them to follow it, but you follow it yourselves. I have so often seen shop owners who write policies, give them to their employees, tell their employees you have to follow this, and then turn around and they violate the policy themselves the next day.
Well, Chris, I've seen so many inspection reports from Jim Saley on those lines and stuff.
Yep.
And the number one policy that's violated by the owner is the workflow.
Right.
And I'll give an example of this. The workflow's going on. Service advisors got control over it. The techs are out doing their job. And a friend or a family member of the shop owner shows up and they say, yeah, just pull the car around back. They go out and pull the tech off the job they're working on. Hey, take a quick look at this. And not realizing how much they're interrupting their own workflow system in the shop by bypassing the service advisor and the tech's routine workflow.
Exactly. So these are things that all of them create a situation where you've got a business and you've got employees and you want to be able to have some freedom, but you can't because, well, as the old saying goes, you've made the bed, now you got to lie in it. And that's what we're talking about are also the solutions to the problem. Because and John Starkey made a really important comment too, about he just actually lost one of his top performers, but who's been with him the longest, but it turned out to be good because it created a massive improvement in the culture, and that he's certain that the success will follow because, and that's really true. Your culture in your shop starts with you and how you address these issues we've been talking about. If you want a culture of people that are independent, productive, who work together, get along great, etc., you've got to empower them to do their jobs and do them without you having to bless every move they make or second guessing them or anything like that. That's how you create that dream shop.
Well, and Chris, it goes back to one of these things I want to say on here. Look, if you need employees in your business for any other reason than pure expansion, then you need to look at your everything we're talking about, your policies, your
Absolutely.
procedures, your culture, everything on here, because this is one of the biggest things I see out there right now. Everybody's looking for employees, but why are we looking for employees? Because we're not retaining the ones we had, or we're making mistakes along the way that chase people off. The number one reason employees leave a business is a disagreement with management.
Right.
Their direct
Absolutely
supervisor
true.
said something or did something they didn't like, and that's why they leave.
Right. And along that lines too, I want to just take a step backward and talk about before you even hire. If you don't have a clearly stated vision for your shop and your values are not well communicated to your team, it's actually going to be hard for you to hire people that align with what you're trying to do. And that's what you want. You want people who are working for you because they believe in your vision. They believe in what you stand for. And because what you stand for aligns with what they stand for. And when you can create that group, then you've got a foundation for building that dream shop. But if you can't articulate your vision, you can't articulate your values, your mission, things like that, it's really difficult to find people who are interested in playing the same game that you're interested in playing.
Well, along those lines, Chris, look, the millennial generation and Gen Z, which everybody should be paying attention to because that's the newest workforce out there.
Yep.
And these two generations right here have one thing. They want to have a purpose when they go to work. They want to
Right.
feel like they're part of something great. And you got to build that teamwork, that culture that actually breeds that within the business. But also at the same time, you got to empower them to take new ideas, make
Hmm.
them part of the policy making decisions, let them come up with systems, let them come up with procedures on there. And the business has got to be organized. If you got to get it cleaned up, you got to get it organized, because if it's not organized, nobody wants to work in chaos.
No.
I know that's what part of the nightmare is for most shop owners, is that there's chaos going over there, and it's about just simply taking a step back and starting to organize things. And then you'll see the talent you want to recruit starts coming in the door.
Yeah.
The people start staying longer. It's all about the getting things organized within the business.
Right. And you mentioned the aspect of the younger generations, the millennials, Generation Z, that they want to feel part of something. And there's no better way to make employees feel part of something and to get the help that you need from your team than to involve them in the problem solving. So an example would be something's not working in your shop. Some procedure's not working. There's a certain amount of chaos in some portion of the shop. Don't try to tackle everything at once, but take a small piece of that and go over it with your team. All right, so this thing um, isn't working, and I'm looking to create a better policy or procedure that will resolve it. And I want to get your feedback. What do you guys think we should do? Just a simple thing like that. If you listen and you actually take the good ideas and work with them to actually implement them, then they own it. It's their idea. You'll get much greater participation, engagement, and buy-in from your team if you involve them in the process. That's
Yeah,
not to say that you're going to take every idea, but at least involve them in the process.
yeah, Chris. And another thing that on this right here, we talk about technology all the time on our shows, and embracing technology, implementing technology into your shop.
Right.
Think about this right now. Gen Z, which is now the guys coming into the workforce and everything, this generation has never lived in a world without a cell phone in their hand,
Weren't they
without
born with cell
internet.
phones in their hands?
They were born with cell phones in their hands, but they don't they've never had a cell phone that didn't have internet access on it.
Right.
They've never lived in a world where they couldn't Google something or you couldn't find information at the touch of their fingertips.
Right.
And this is a generation that embraces technology. And if you think you're worried about, we've talked about millennials and everybody's thinking about that. Millennials are becoming the older generation now. Gen Z is entering the workforce. And just to put perspective on this, the alpha generation will start entering the workforce in less than 4 years.
Hmm. Yeah, most people, most of the older guys, I'll say it that way, don't realize that the leading edge of the millennial generation is about to hit 40. Crazy as that sounds, but that's the truth. So you got to get your wits around that, and the fact that the values that they have, the things that are important to them, and what they're used to are vastly different than the things that the baby boomers are used to or Gen X are used to. So it's important to really get to know the people you're hiring and create an environment that will help them to succeed, because if they succeed, you succeed, and you're that's again, that's one of those stepping stones to going from that nightmare shop to the dream shop.
Well, having that dream shop means that you got to have the right employees at the right place and following the right procedures and policies in your shop. And I know we're talking about this because hiring is such a hot topic out there. Can't find employees. Nobody wants to work. We hear, how many excuses have you heard on this? But when somebody sits
Many.
down and actually puts their attention to it and fixes some of the problems in their shop, they start running into a condition where they have too many applications or too many people wanting to come to work for them, and they ain't got positions for them. And
Right.
that's what everybody should be striving to. If it's causing you a headache in your shop, fix it. Don't wait and say, I'll do it tomorrow or the next day, or I'll get to that, or it'll go away on its own, because it never goes away on its own. It's always going to be there. It's going to keep coming back and back. So you got to fix it. You got to put the right policy, the right procedure in place, or the right system, or bring the right technology to prevent it. Or there's so many ors in here. Train.
Right.
There's so much to it, Chris. There's just so much to this topic.
Yeah, it's such an important point. And how many times have you heard from shop owners that, once they got their shop running better, that they would have technicians walk in to ask if they were hiring? Where before they couldn't get a technician, now they're getting people who are just showing up and asking for jobs. I've heard that so many times.
I've heard of it so many, and I know Tim and Cody Morlock up there in Redding, California, they have people waiting to come to their business. I had people waiting to come to my business to work. If you bring that culture and show that it's organized, people want to come to you.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to look at. That's how you get the better employees. Now, will you go through some road bumps? Will you get some of the wrong employees? Will you have to go through some? You may.
Of course.
I always say the problem that shop owners get, they hire an employee, it doesn't work out. It's like getting bit by the dog that you reach down to pet. The next time you're kind of hesitant to reach down there and pet that dog.
Right.
Well, with hiring, you can't get that attitude. You've got to just say, okay, that one didn't work out. Brush it off and move to the next one. And that's the past. We're going into the future, and the next one won't be like that.
Right. I mean, it's in a way you could think of it like an athlete that really has to have a short memory. You can't think about the last loss when you're going into the next game. You've got to be focused on just winning that next game. And the same is true with employees. Okay, that last guy didn't work out. Here's the next guy. And you find another guy and you give them a job, and then you move forward from there.
Correct. So look, the big thing I have to say, Chris, on this is look and talk to your business coach. If you don't have a business coach, reach out to Drive. We'll help you out on these subjects, because look, we're here to help everybody achieve their goals, have that dream shop. And sometimes it's just getting answers for what you don't know and then implementing them, and things turn around really quick. So that's what we're here to help everybody with at Drive. And
Absolutely.
then just to come up, we're kind of coming up on the end of our time here today, Chris, but to let all of our viewers know, look, we want you to have a great weekend, rest, recharge your batteries, and then take Monday morning as a new viewpoint and say, what can I do better, or what can my employees do better at my shop, and how do I implement this? And coming up next Friday, we're going to have Steve Knowlton of SK Motorsports doing a live shop tour. Steve is a top 20 member, master of shop management, and he just moved into a new location. So it's a pretty interesting story with Steve. He's going to talk to us about his story, give us a shop tour, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week, and hope everybody has a great weekend.